Welcome back to POD.AI, where we let AI run the show. My name's Jason. I'm a filmmaker.
I'm Forrest, trading stuff.
And I have no idea how those two career paths line up, but here we are.
Yep.
So what are we getting into today?
Today we're going to talk about anti-woke, what it means to be woke, what is the anti-woke movement, and what does it mean to be anti-woke, or what I just thought of as MEGAWOKE.
Oh shit! Have you heard about this movie? This is a whole part of like the woke thing, right? So there's this movie that just came out. It's like a semi-horror like thriller movie called Nefarious. Have you heard of it? So it's about this guy that commits like these string of murders, and then he's on death row, and they send like a psychiatrist to go and evaluate him to see if he's eligible for execution, basically.
Okay.
And then the whole movie is just an interview between the psychiatrist and the murderer, who is possessed by a demon. So it's the psychiatrist talking to the demon. And the demon is basically going on about like, you know, how demons operate and how the world is like sinking into darkness or whatever. And the first of all, the acting, fantastic.
No shit.
But the first half of the movie, it grips you. You're like, oh, I'm in here, because the acting is really good and the script is really good. And then it takes a very far right turn where the demon starts going off about abortion, this and fucking, and it just turns into this like right wing like propaganda farm. And like I was so taken aback because I'm watching it and I'm like, damn, this is good as fuck.
Yeah.
And then it takes that right turn, and I'm like, damn.
I'm killing too many babies.
I'm still hella entertained, though.
Yeah, that's crazy, bro.
So I was like, damn, I don't agree. However, you're making a very convincing argument based on like how well this movie is acted. But
it shows you how propaganda works. You know, they just like present a rational idea. Doesn't mean it's right, but it's like the 1 + 1, you know, kind of equals 2. Then they package it up into a film, you know, and that's how they get you, you know. But,
bro, whenever I decide to post like a short for this, I'm gonna throw up the part of the film where the demon, like, so the psychiatrist's wife is actively having an abortion while they're in the room together, and the demon gets up and he's like, "Your unborn son is on our altar in 3, 2, 1," and like it's actually happening while the demon is saying it, but he shouldn't know any of this information. It's mad entertaining.
That's wild.
I was like, oh shit, how does he know that?
That is wild. But
at the same time, I was just like, dog.
This reminds me of
his wife chose that. Like, that's her body, her choice. Like,
yeah, this reminds me of a Louis C.K. bit. I saw a TikTok of it yesterday where he's like, we used to just accept that like the weak babies would die. You know, it was just like. Humankind used to only be the good babies, and then like in the past like 50 years, we just started saving all the babies, which is a little bit different than like abortion. But it's just like it used to be accepted that just like motherfuckers would die, you know. Like if you came out and you know you had respiratory problems or something, and we didn't have modern medicine, you would just die. Then they would literally just have another kid. Like you was like, oh, that one wasn't good enough. Well, like it's so sad, but you just like people dying was like or losing babies, I would say. I wouldn't say people. Obviously, I think if something is born, it sucks that its life is lost. But there was just like this general understanding that like, you know, a baby is like the beginning of life. It's not like a whole person that you got to get bent out of shape about, you know? Very, very different. Yeah.
The only I don't even have pushback on that. It's just like, I feel like we used to be a very, you know, nature says survival of the fittest, right? And then we kind of came in and we're like, you know what? Nah, survival of everybody.
Yeah, keep it breathing and
survival as much as is physically possible. And it's like, all right.
The whole thing is a moral gray area, no matter how you cut it. Because even people who are alive, like people who are on their deathbed, you know, like the right to. You know, I can't remember what they call it. Like
that's another part of the fucking movie. So
no shit.
So the demon in the movie or whatever, he tells the psychiatrist, he's like, you're gonna commit 3 murders before you leave this room today. One obviously being like committing the inmate or the demon himself to be executed. 2 being the abortion, and then 3, he goes into this thing of like how the psychiatrist's mother, like this long before the psychiatrist ever walked in the building, but his mother was on like assisted living, and like she was basically on her deathbed and she requested euthanasia.
How was that?
But like the demon tries to like phrase it as like murder, and it's like, nah.
Here's a part of it.
So that's what I'm saying though. Like this movie is so propaganda-y.
Yeah.
That I was like, it lost me, and I was like, damn. I was rooting for this movie. Yeah. It's so good, but then it just...
Yeah. And the thing about it is, like, this is just going to be a political episode, I guess, is like, say you're doing it for religious purposes. If the mom and the baby die, then they just go to whatever afterlife they're going to go to anyways. You know? Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah,
like, if you believe in heaven, then baby's fucking in heaven. Like, who gives a fuck? You know? It doesn't add up. But because it doesn't add up, you know that's not the reason. The reason is always control. It's always about controlling, what other people can and can't do.
Which brings us back to the whole like woke agenda thing, which I can't stand what the word woke has like come to mean in like the modern day or whatever. Because it's like people. So woke came up in like the 1960s as a term used pretty much exclusively by people of color to basically just say like, yo, there's fuckery about. Yeah. Stay woke. Like, stay alert.
Keep your head up.
Keep your head up.
Keep your head on the swivel. You know,
there's a sun downtown about 6 miles down the street. Stay woke. Yeah. Just know what's going on over there.
If you don't know what a sundown town is, by the way, that's a town where don't be black after the sun goes down. All right. And
they still exist. Like, which is fucking insane.
Yeah,
that's insane to me. That like that's still a thing. Cause I got a cousin who's a truck driver, and he's like, I'm not allowed to stop like pretty much anywhere in Mississippi.
That's wild.
It's fucked up.
That's absolutely fucked up. That's the world we live in, folks. Racism. But what does woke mean now, according to the people who hate it? Really, the people that hate black people. But
I feel like woke is like diet nigger. And I'm sorry I hit the hard R there, but
you had to do it.
I had to do it to him. Anyway, the people that use the word woke now use it to describe anything pro progress. Yeah. Or anything pro, like any progressive outlook on or liberal outlook on the way that we view the world. Like inclusion is woke.
Right.
Any sort of,
but it's a whole other annoying thing because now woke is wrapped up in like gay rights and like LGBT, and it's like that's not what it is. Like being woke is
just being aware of history and the systems at place. Like just be aware of what's really going on in the world, because you can to be the antithesis of being woke would to be just. It's a state of ignorance, right? Yeah. Of just like, none of that shit affects me, so I'm So
being woke isn't even like a progressive stance. It's not really saying, you're not even trying to change people's ideas. Being woke is a defensive stance. You basically are saying, hey, we live in an unjust world and society, so stay woke so that like you don't get unjustly arrested or prosecuted for whatever it is. Whatever minority group you are, like that's what being woke is. So like it's funny that like they turned being woke into like an agenda, because being woke isn't an agenda, because there is a progressive like agenda or agendas of people who want to like make the world more accepting for not only just black people but every minority group, as well as both racially and whatever your sexual orientation is. That exists, but staying woke is like a defensive stance of like, yo, you're in an unsafe space. Stay woke. Exactly. Like, it's not safe here. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all it is.
Exactly. And so like on the subject of like sexuality, right? Like we live in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's like a huge thing on like transgender rights, even gay rights here in the state of Florida. Um, and the way that it's looked at is that like, oh, if we teach anything about sexual orientation to our kids in their formative years, then their argument is that either it increases the likelihood that they will turn out to be gay or whatever the case may be, or it's like you're overly pushing sexuality onto children. And I have an analogy for the way that I view it, which is obviously opposed to that ideology, but it's kind of like a lighthouse, right? Whereas when you put up a gay flag, a transgender flag, it's a symbol for like if your kid is born gay or transgender or whatever the case may be, whatever their sexual orientation may be, they were born that way. Like that's just how they came out. Luck of the draw, bud.
Right.
And so having inclusivity in the school curriculum, in whatever the case may be, having the flags up is kind of like a lighthouse in that it's saying, hey, this thing that you feel is real and exists. And if you feel this way, like it's okay. And there is a community out here to support you. So it's basically like a lighthouse in the dark. Like when you come out and you start to feel like, oh, I'm not like everybody else, it's like, oh shit. And most people, their first reaction is going to be to self-isolate.
Yeah.
As an antithesis to that, when you shine a light on those issues and when you shine a light on the topic of sexuality, especially at a young age where they're just starting to realize like, hey, I might be a little different from everybody out here. So when you're able to shine a light on it, it's not making them gay. It's just giving them an opportunity to say, oh shit, that's what I am. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they can, move in the direction of being more true to themselves. So it's like sexuality in school curriculum is not making your kid gay. Your kid was already gay.
Right. Like the idea that I'm just going to be explicit because it's our fucking podcast. Like say what I want. But really for the sake of example, like you either want to be around dicks or you don't want to be around dicks. Like I'm telling you guys, like it doesn't, and sexuality is a spectrum. So like maybe you want X amount of dicks, you favor women more than cocks, right? But you can't fucking sit me down and like fucking convince me to go suck a dick tomorrow, at any age.
There's no amount of convincing.
Like if I was 8 years old and someone was like, "Hey, Forrest, but it's just so much fun, and don't you want to try it?" And I'm like, "Well, I've just known since all 10 years of my life that I like pussies, and I'm pretty sure I don't like dicks." And because I've had that experience, I know that people have similar but differing experiences where either it's the opposite or they're cool with all of it. But like, there's like,
you ever been hit on by a gay dude?
Yeah, all the time.
Yo, isn't it flattering as fuck?
It is.
It's because like, first of all, as men, like getting hit on by women is it can be a rare occurrence. If you're like extremely good looking, then
oh dude, when a girl hits on you, it like makes your day.
When a girl listen, I remember every compliment that a woman has ever given me in my entire life. Yeah. When a gay dude hits on you, it's funny because you're like, oh, you think I play for that team, but it's like, yeah, no, I don't. But thank you. But then.
Get your cock away from me.
No. I don't even get offended. Disclaimer, I'm Jamaican. I come from the most homophobic community of people to ever exist. Like Jamaicans don't play that shit.
I was like,
but that's never been a part of my reality growing up. Like I've always lived as a part of a very tolerant and like accepting community. Like no one in my immediate family or in my immediate scope of friends within the Jamaican community has ever been like hyper homophobic, but it is a part of our culture where it's like, I guess it's more of a Rastafarian thing where like Rastafarianism is very, very heavily opposed to that, and like I'm not a Rasta, none of my family are Rastas, so that's just how that goes. But so this one time I had a gay dude hit on me at a bar, and I was just like, oh, sorry, player, I don't swing for that team.
Yeah.
And his approach was to just like befriend me, and then he was buying me drinks all night, and I was like, I see your play, brother. It's not gonna work.
Like, I've run the same play, man. It ain't gonna work though.
Listen, I'm the quarterback of that team, brother. You can't run this play on me.
Right.
But I was accepting the drinks, so it was like, am I leading him on?
Right.
No, I'm just accepting drinks from a stranger.
You know what's funny is I'm in a similar situation. Talk to a dude. It's like, hey, bro, like I'm straight. You know, and he's like, oh, cool, whatever. And he's just drinking and hanging out. And then like, but they're still kind of flirty. And he's like, I kind of feel gay right now. Because I definitely already straight up said this. And like now I'm trying to have like a normal like dude conversation. And but they're still like fucking being all just gay.
Yeah.
You know, just like bro, like I'm gonna remind you that
let me the reminder phase,
right?
The reminder phase in that whole scenario is fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
because like the reminder phase is like you're probably like what 4 drinks in,
yeah,
and you're like, hey, by the way, just putting this out there, this that you think is happening is not happening. I just want to reiterate for all parties involved, because you'll probably be with like a group of people. It's not just if it's just you two. There's one dude on TikTok that did this like comedy bit about like he went on a gay date, but he had no idea it was a date.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
he was playing basketball with dude.
Yeah,
hilarious. I'll put the clip up if I find it. But it's like if you're one-on-one, completely different scenario.
Bro, that happened to me. I forgot. It was when I first moved here, bro.
Welcome to Miami.
So I'm talking to I told Brianna about this story. It was hilarious, bro. I can't remember where I met this dude. He's a real estate agent, and I invest in real estate, right? So we exchanged numbers, all that, just talking about real estate, bro. Talking about business. And somewhere, fucking communication at some level got missed, because he was like, "Yo, let's grab coffee. We'll meet up. We'll talk business, whatever." I'm like, "Word, that's like a normal thing
to communicate with your realtor."
Do. So I showed up with coffee. And I'm like, yo, I don't like the way these guys are looking at me. Yeah. Like, hey, man, you're a little too excited to see me. So we're talking.
Listen, player, my eyes are up here. What you doing?
So we're sitting down, and he's asking me like date questions. And at first, I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like because look, I'm in sales, so I've actually met like a ton of like weird people. And one of the things when you meet somebody who like breaks your social expectations is I'm always open to just like not react immediately. I'm like, okay, this person it could be from a different background, different part of the world. I have no idea what is actually normal for them. Also, I'm new to Miami. So I approached the conversation very openly to like see what it was. But then after like 2 or 3 questions, I was like, oh, this man's gay. Like this is actually where this is going. And so then I just had to like, because he didn't explicitly say it, so I just like started adding hints.
Like,
that like,
because you can't just come out. You can't just come out and be like, "Are you gay?"
Yeah, because the pretext for the conversation was talking about.
Honestly, that's actually the direct approach is actually a hilarious way to go about it. It's like, yo, you coming on to me right now?
Like, you hitting on me, bro? Yeah.
Honestly, that like kind of diffuses the tension for me, at least, because like,
yeah. But I feel like people who are, what's the word? Homophobic. I was gonna say anti-gay. I couldn't think of that word, homophobia. I think people who are homophobic are afraid of those situations so much.
Yeah,
like they're afraid of like being hit on by a guy, and like they act like if a guy hits on you,
because in some way, shape,
gonna
or
just
form,
start fucking you.
It takes away from your masculinity, or like, what you think I'm not a man, so you could just fuck me, and it's just like, nah, dude, that's literally just a mirror. Like that's just you. Like when you go out and talk to women, he's doing the same fucking thing that you do.
And it is weird. I will say it's weird, especially when it first happens to you. But eventually you realize like this is just a normal thing.
I'm gonna touch on one thing real quick, which is there's sort of a subculture among. I don't know if this is necessarily something that happens among women, but among gay men, I'm sure it happens among women. Matter of fact, I'm positive. But there's like a subculture of gay men who just thoroughly enjoy trying to get straight men, or maybe even gay or bi-curious men, to like, they like to like turn out guys, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And a whole lot of gray areas around that, because I think that's a little weird.
That's definitely weird. But you have to ask the question, if they are successfully turning out. I mean, those dudes probably just had repressed gayness, and those guys are just good at finding those dudes. You know what I'm saying?
They can sniff them out like a truffle hound.
Because like I'm saying, like, you're either down and it's repressed due to the society that we live in, which is very hetero focused, right? And so it'd be easy. Like, say if you're a bi person, in our generation specifically, where we grew up just saying gay as a slur, like straight up, like millennials, like we were very homophobic generation as children.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Which is why I think we have the backlash now. I have this whole other theory about this. I want to come back to this. But, yeah, so like, I think it's definitely wrong to like push past like initial, like, hey, I'm not about that. But if somebody eventually, I mean, then it's just like,
no means no.
You might have just been
right. Because then we get into like coercion, and it's that's why I say there's a shit ton of gray areas around that.
Oh yeah,
because it's like
life is all gray though, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. There's nothing is black and white. Everything's gray. Yeah. But damn, we fucking went off on a tangent here.
Yeah, what happened to
crazy?
But this does fit.
We were talking about woke, but
what I think this fits in because what we described is a very progressive stance, which I mean to be fair, like that acceptance and stuff is, I think, what very conservative people are afraid of. They don't want to live in that world where guys can hit on them and they have to navigate it, right? They don't want that
because
they want gays to be over here. Don't talk to me. You can exist. Like their idea of acceptance is like, oh yeah, we're cool with gay people. Just don't ask me out. Don't interact with me. I don't want to have to think about my sexuality ever by being confronted with it. I just want to, you know, like that's
I don't want to have to think about my sexuality ever.
Yeah.
I've decided on what it is, and I'm not doing any more work on that.
Right.
And like that's really what it is, right? Which is like it goes into pretty much every conservative ideology, which is like I don't want to have to think about
I don't have to think.
I don't want to have to think about my relationship with black people. So here are the rules on black people. That's what it is. Go away.
Yeah. My conservative friends watching this, I love you. Well, I would say most of my friends are conservative, so this is not an attack.
It's no. Listen,
this is just my opinion of you. No, I'm kidding. It's all a joke. It's all a joke. You can flame me.
Look, I have my own conservative friends. Julian, if you're watching this, you're my only conservative friend. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of goes back to just like I want life to play by simple rules.
Yeah.
And like when everything starts turning gray, and like I gotta really start thinking about every little decision. I'm an overthinker. I hate that. I don't like to have to overthink. So being against having to think so much, not necessarily such a bad thing. I get it. Yeah. I don't like thinking like too much about every single interaction. I'm just more of a like I'm a tolerant and reactive person, where it's just like I can tolerate any situation that you put me in. Not even just tolerate, like I can navigate through any situation that you put me in, and you know I'm nothing's really gonna like shake me to my core. Like if a gay dude hits on me, I'm just like, oh shit, this gay dude thinks I'm attractive. He also probably thinks I'm gay. I wonder why that is. Am I wearing something particularly gay? Anyway, and then I just go about my business. You know what I mean? I don't give it that much thought, which is like a super overthinking person, which I consider myself as even still, but a super overthinking person will start questioning everything about their reality in that situation and be like, am I gay? Why does someone else think I'm gay?
I think that's
what do
the
people
part
think of me? And people will spiral.
I think that's the part that people who are very anti it are afraid of, right? So one, there's a lot of closeted people who grew up conservative that have this reaction, and then I think there's also people who have like a toxic sense of masculinity who are like, why does he think I'm gay? Like, am I not man enough? Not realizing that like you could present like you could be a super like quote unquote masculine dude
and have like
be
this
gay,
one thing that you do that looks kind of like, hey, wait a minute.
Well, no, I'm
Like,
just
it
saying
could be
like
the way
there are
that you wear your hair. It could be like, you know, when you're talking with your hands, you do this a little bit, but
yeah.
everything comes back to just like everything is gray, right?
Yeah.
And then like,
Well, the point I was gonna make is that like
Yeah.
there are gay dudes you would never know are gay if you have that perception of gay people because they don't fit your idea of effeminate men, right? They are masculine in every single way, and unless you talk to them and knew their personal life, you wouldn't know they're gay, right? But that doesn't fit what we as a society think of gay people. And so it's funny that like you have that reaction of like, oh, do I think I'm gay? But it's like the gay person, they know that gay people come in different shapes, sizes, and mannerisms, right?
I think like
you don't know that.
everybody's at least 2% gay. Like everybody's had like a gay thought here or there.
Yeah, well, I'm like 8% gay.
It's high.
Yeah, I know. It's a problem. It is though. I think you really hit the nail on the head, man, with like people not wanting to think about it and like their sexuality at all. And I think it takes direct experience to actually know, like having gay friends, like having, you know, because otherwise, if you have a conversation with someone and you're trying to change their mind, you're not trying to just like, you know, be right. You're trying to actually change their mind, and let's assume they're homophobic. It's like the only way you can do that is by relating through human experiences, which is really, really hard unless you're really, really.
Because not everybody has like. I think where we get tripped up is not everybody has a wealth of life experience.
Exactly.
So
how can you explain?
I've been so blessed. I've been so blessed as to be able to experience a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. But certain people that grew up in certain communities where like the whole community is one way. Like this whole community is a bunch of people that try to live life the same way, and we all picked a place and we all live here. And
right.
You grew up in this environment, and all your neighbors are conservative, or whatever the case may be. All your neighbors are of a certain race or of a certain background, and you don't have a wealth of life experience or a wealth of different kinds of people around you to even have these experiences. So how are you possibly going to be able to relate to them?
Yeah.
Right? They don't know anything about your life because they obviously didn't grow up in that same community you did. You don't know anything about their life because you've never even been outside your community. You might as well have lived on a Mormon farm for your whole life. Just how it is.
Same problem exists for progressives too. Like I know people say like if you grew up in New York City and you've always been around like people who are bi, pansexual, all these different things, and then you go someone who has a different life experience, right? And your default position is I'm right and they're wrong. And their default position is I'm right and you're wrong. Like because you haven't actually thought about what it's like to grow up in a more homogenous place, it's going to be really, really hard for you to relate to that person. Again, if your goal is to change their mind, right? I think a lot of people go into conversations with just like, I want this person to know that they're wrong and I hate them,
but like,
and I want everyone to see it. And like that's how they approach the conversation.
Why is that anybody's goal though? Like, why are you trying to change other people's minds when you don't even have your own mind made up? Like, and your mind shouldn't ever be made up because there's the whole concept of, and I'm just going to keep using that term, your mind being made up, right? Your mind should be ever changing. Yeah. Like your mind should never be made up on anything. Any one piece of information could come along. Like tomorrow they could find out that, hey, you know what? We've been wrong this entire time. The earth actually is the center of the universe. And we just found this out. And that could come out tomorrow. Crazy. And we would be like, well, shit, I guess that whole thing was wrong. Now I have to create a whole new concept of reality in my head. Or tomorrow they could find out that like, yo, fucking COVID was never real, or whatever the case may be.
No, dude, that comes out.
Let me not.
Society will rip at its core.
Society would fucking crumble.
Fucking get torn in half.
I know it would be bad, but it's just like, yo, your reality is not fixed. None of the information that you think that you think is a fact is fixed, except like certain scientific information, and even that can change with new data and new research, right? So like to think that your mind is made up and to think that things are, I don't want to put that, things are concrete in the way that they're solidified in your universe.
Even the idea that you understand the world, like one of the things, and I actually I understand so well, like the mindset of some of these people, because I legitimately grew up thinking being gay was wrong. I was very much in the church, went to church like 3 times a week, and it was just my religious belief system. I don't hate it. I'm not mad that was my upbringing. It just was my life, and that is a lot of people's life, right? You are given beliefs, right? They're given to you. They're kind of thrust upon you, right? And through experience, living and having friends, and I'm probably an open-minded person in general, but eventually, and like probably when I was a teenager, I was like, this is wrong. Like, it's not good to think this way, and I actually started pushing my friends to, yo, we should stop saying stuff is gay. People used to like flame me all the time, like Forrest, like, and this is a long time ago. This is like a long time ago, but I was just like
this is like early 2000s.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't like that shit. I don't think that shit's wrong. Then especially in college, I had gay teammates who I really, really respected, which is kind of it seems like a cheesy way to like really have these realizations, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it takes experience. But like when I had like men that I like really, really respected, and I was going through the grind with trying to be like D1 track athletes who were gay, I'm an adult at this point. That's when it really solidified that, like, okay, like whatever preconceived notion I grew up with is wrong. And not everybody had that realization, because I definitely had teammates in college who kind of went the other way, right? And so it really takes this open mindset and understanding that, like, and I would say empathy, to realize that like we're all just here. And here's the other thing that I think that I always tell to people when you confront anything with any belief system is like, this person could mask and not say anything. Like, their life would be a lot easier. Like, think about it. Well, maybe not easier, probably painful, but outwardly, right? If you, in a world that hates your sexual orientation, right? And it's not something that shows up, right? Being black, I can't hide being black,
I've
but
tried.
People, many people have hidden their sexual orientation, right? And so
I said I lied. I have never tried to not be black. Don't let anybody tell you that I tried that.
Amazing.
I fucking love being black. If I could be born 15 more times, I'd be born Caribbean but black every single time.
I'd probably try being like, what is it in
Asian?
Australia? The Samoan.
Oh, you talking about
Or they're in
that's
Hawaii.
like Hawaiian.
Yeah, I'd come back as like a really big Samoan guy.
Yeah.
And then the life after that, I'd go back to being black.
That'd be
but
tight.
I'd try
That'd
being
be tight.
Samoan.
With the tattoos and all that shit.
Yeah.
That'd be tight.
I'd try one life as like a tall white guy. But then probably just go back to being black. But just to know it's like. But anyways, like, I can't remember what my initial thought was about.
Shit, my bad. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good. But, I completely lost it. I completely lost.
Oh shit! Where's my phone? Because
the threat. It's been 34 minutes.
We're 35 minutes in. Let me.
You guys knew the point that I was trying to make, though. But yeah, man. I mean, you just I think relating to people, which is why it's so hard. But here's where I was going with this. Right, when you have empathy and you realize that, like, I was born in Belleville, you were born in wherever, some small town. Like, the idea that you can understand the world, right, in 20 odd years, 30 odd years, 40 odd years, and just have a concrete idea based off of some limited set of experiences in whatever small fuck ass town. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what it was for me. I was like, I grew up in some small random ass town. It's unimportant, right? I barely met anybody. I haven't really done anything. I was like, there's no way I have this shit figured out. There's no way my opinions about other people are correct. And that was legitimately like my thought. And that's when I was just like, now I'm very open to like anything. I know it's crazy, but like people could be like, I believe in this. I'm like, I literally am just like, that's cool. And that's why I have a lot of, and this drives my very political lefty friends. I have a lot of like friends I have friends in every political ideology, but I get along really well with conservatives because like I just have empathy.
Really great people on both sides of the aisle.
They were all the same. I don't think that everybody. I don't make the argument that the left and right is the same. That's not what I'm saying. Like I personally actually hate it. I'm saying this right now, but like I've always voted left Probably will. I'm just gonna say probably. I could not. Who knows? But I get along with conservatives. I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So like, I just get it. But that's because we're all just people. Like, you go. I'm on a day by day basis. I'm doing the same shit that most other people are doing who believe different. And that's just how I think about it. It's like I'm going to fucking Target to get groceries, going to the clubs on the weekends, I like going to the beach. I have hobbies. Like our lives are the fucking same.
Yeah, that's the thing is that like when you boil it down, like a lot of people lead very similar lives and are trying to accomplish very similar things, right? Like. And, one of the topics that I wanted to touch on today was like, the gap in opportunity between generations, which we'll get into that in a second. But, hello?
The fuck?
Your upstairs neighbors are just dropping shit on the floor. That was loud.
Wait, is that water right there?
No.
I'm going to have to look at that closer after this.
Yeah.
My upstairs neighbor is actually one of the leasing agents.
Oh, shit.
So I'm going to go knock on her door and tell her, shut the fuck up. Lower my rent.
Shit, I lost my train of thought.
Wage gap or opportunity gap between generations.
The opportunity gap. But, well, all right. So, like, everybody's trying to lead the same basic life principles of, like, I just want to provide for myself, provide for my family.
Yeah.
I want to live a good life and do the things that I personally like to do, right? And there's no rule book that tells you, like, oh, this is exactly how you should do that. So we're all just kind of trying to figure that shit out and play by whatever rules our life experience gives us, right? So I want to talk about the gap in opportunity between generations because it's like, all right, your parents, my parents are immigrants, your parents,
they're just
black.
Well, my dad's mixed. Mom's black mostly.
Yeah, so my parents came here from Jamaica and Canada, respectively. And, like, their opportunities when they came here, like, my dad worked in the school system for a really long time. And he was probably making, like, at most, I think throughout the time that I was growing up, he's probably making at most, like, 40 grand. Like, at most. And providing for a family of 5 in a pretty decently sized, like 3-bedroom house in like a decent area.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and my mom worked, but it was never like, she never really had like something like super duper stable. So I think at most our household income in a 3-bedroom house providing for 5 people at most at any given time was probably like 55, 60,000. I make that now as a single person with nobody to provide for.
Yeah.
Nobody. I can't afford an apartment. Like I can't afford 600 square feet of space in this fucking city. So I think where people are, so right now in New York, they're striking for rent control.
Yeah.
A lot of people showing up to their local state houses and such. And people all across the country are looking for rent control. What is your position on how, because you lived in New York, and during the time you lived there, was it rent controlled?
So there's always been a very small amount of rent control. So basically New York has say you have 100 units in a building, 3 of them have to be rent controlled, right? So there's like a percentage of every building that has to be affordable. Now, it's such a small amount that it's irrelevant. And so when builders or people build in things, their whole model is just around, all right, these 4 units we're not going to make as much money on, right? But it's a really, 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 really small amount. So everybody else, let's just say 95%, whatever it is, all have free market rent. So my position on this is actually a long answer because it really deals with the free market. The problem with real estate in the country, particularly rent supply, is that it's not a free market, right? That's the shortest way to put this. So supply is basically how many units there are, and then demand is
how many people are looking for those units.
Demand is complex though, because there's a demand floor, because people have to live somewhere. So demand for housing will never be zero, because people are being born, and people, buildings get old. People have to live places to work, right? So it'll never be zero. And there's other things that affect demand. The supply side is super duper manipulated in the market. What do I mean by that? You've probably heard how in like San Francisco and all these cities that have all these housing problems, like they can't do new developments because the cities want to keep the values of the properties high. And so if you
aren't there like a shit ton of vacancies too?
Yep. So the supply, like I said, the supply side is super manipulated.
Make it make sense.
Right. So you have in the market today, there's a ton of vacant units which are held by the investor class. And then they limit the supply by not letting people build new housing, because if you increase the supply, prices go down. When prices go down, that has a leverage effect on the values of real estate. And what do I mean by that? Leverage means that, in a building of 100 people, if you lose 10 people, the value goes down by way more than the people who left, right? It's like it's a lever effect. But the important part of that there is all the different ways that they're manipulating it, right? So on the supply side, again, there's a ton of vacancies that are being held by the investor class. And then they're not really, it's the fact that they're not building more housing, which would, allow people to have more choices to choose from, and just lower the prices overall.
But so even here, like they're putting up new buildings like every other fucking day.
Right. And that's the other side where it's limited, right? So it's like a club, right? So there's a lot of new buildings, but these are all like, there's a handful of developers, right? So they can control the prices. So because they own all the new supply, sure, there's new supply, but they can set the prices. So let's say that maybe it takes a little bit longer for this building to rent, but they're not going to let the price of market rent get below whatever they want it to be. Because if they lower the price on that building,
they have to lower the price in all the other buildings.
Every other building, right? It's a crazy game, right? So, and then we hear things about like online, they're like, oh, well, there's a supply shortage of materials, and like all that shit is fake, guys. I'm telling you, it's fake. We have, more raw material in this country than there's such a surplus. It's all like any supply shortage, anything, like it's all manufactured, which is why I go back to that word free market. The problem with a free market over time is that if you don't regulate it enough, people will start to monopolize. We know monopolies exist. They happen all the time. They've happened in the past. And all a monopoly is that when the game, everyone starts from zero. So say you start a fair game, eventually there's going to be people, and the game doesn't end, right? The game never ends, right? And just imagine you come into a Monopoly game, right, after 20 hands, and there's 3 players, and one guy owns half the board, and everyone else, there's 4 other players who own the other half. But one player owns half the board. You're never gonna be able to maneuver over that one player. That's the world, right? So people say it's a free market, but it's like, and there's all this competition. It's like there isn't competition. There's whatever the one player says, and then people can maneuver within that. And so you have to regulate to a degree what the big players are allowed to do. The market doesn't become free anymore, right? So, I think free market mechanics are useful only when there is an exceptional amount of competition. When you don't have competition, capitalism and everything falls on its face. Which really, we're like an end stage capitalism today, like across the board.
That's the whole ethos behind late stage capitalism, is that in a free market with these competitive aspects, eventually somebody wins the competition.
Yeah.
Right. And in late stage capitalism, the winners have been selected. They're there.
Yeah.
And there's no real way to leverage yourself above the ones that have won already. Like, right. And you would think like, oh, well, as generations change and those people die out, then the new generation can come in and change the rules. That's not how that works, because they're setting up. The winners have set up for their lineage, their entire. Every person that comes after them is going to continue that winnership, right? So there's no real way to get over that. So essentially, I feel like the only way to really get past that late stage capitalism is to either A, reset the game of Monopoly, which is catastrophic in its own right, and there's no real like. Once you start looking at that, the only real ways to do that are like through complex revolution and complete systemic overhaul. You either reset the game or you start a new game. And both of those involve complete societal restructuring. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's really pushing for that. I mean, people are probably pushing for it because we're desperate. Yeah. But like, you talked earlier about like you come onto the Monopoly board and one person owns half, and then the rest of everybody else owns the other half. The one person owns 99%, and the rest of everybody else owns this. Right. This. Everybody else has this amount of Monopoly money, and that one person has this big ass amount of Monopoly money. So I'm glad that we just had that readily available on the table.
This is not real money. This is prop money that I've had for a while.
Yeah, we're not flexing like that.
I think it's and in this Monopoly analogy, imagine that the board, like the way that you could fix it is like you could actually just 10x the board and just add all this unacquired stuff. Like we have all this, like America is mostly just empty space. Yeah. Like there's so much space to build. We could build new cities, better cities. You know, the only reason, guys, it's not because there's not enough money. It's not because there's not enough. It's because if we do that, people in first place won't be in first place anymore. So the only time that you'll see new big changes happen is when the people who are in first place are ready to profit from it. That's it. So you're not going to see like a new futuristic city pop up somewhere unless all of the big players are the ones in on it and they're reaping 90% of the profits. You're not going to see full social changes unless the big players are the ones driving it, which is why shit takes so long to change.
All right, so I'll give you an example then. Let's say, for example, huge community of people. Yeah. Say a couple million. Yeah. Move out to some fucking bumfuck piece of land in the middle of nowhere. Decide to build a new city in that area, right? Yeah. And the rules of this new game in this new place that we've started are anybody that wants to invest in this area cannot be connected to the people that are currently winning in any way, shape, or form.
You could try.
You could try. And like, obviously there are going to be ways around that, right? Where like, you know, the investors who are currently in charge will just go through a third party or go through X, Y, and Z to like make it happen. Because once you have that level of money, life becomes real malleable. You can kind of just make shit happen out of pretty much thin air. But if you put enough systems in place to stop that from happening, you can create, like, it would be theoretically possible to create cities in these pretty much untapped areas where they are almost self-sustaining and are able to be controlled by the rest of the players on the board.
You definitely could. Like, we could, like, someone could build, or a group of people could go build a sustainable city that's all like solar and run on like whatever and farm and completely self-contained. You might need one financial backer, somebody who's like has a lot of money and is also very progressive, or you could just do pure, you know, bootstrap
crowdsourcing.
Yeah, just crowdsource it. It's entirely possible. And like I said, America is mostly empty, so like there's land out there that like people could just do it. You just need enough people to go do it. And it'd be cool to see. But we are coming up on 50 minutes.
Yeah. So with that, if you are thinking about joining a society of people that want to just make our own city and say fuck off to all these other cities, holla at me on Instagram at j.tyler.photo. I'll start a group chat.
What are we gonna call it?
Uh,
Foreverville. No, it's a terrible name.
Terrible name. We're gonna workshop the name, but see you guys in the next episode.
Dirt.
On that note, deuces.
Deuces. Peace.